If your idea of a good time is listening to an ex-cop tell wild stories about life-threatening situations that went down while he was undercover, hello, you've come to the right place. Heads up though, there is a condensed version of this particular story, along with visuals that I'd advise checking out first, so hit the link in the description below. But either way, this is an awesome conversation that delves into life as an undercover cop, working drug bust, and some of the unexpected shit that can take place, putting your life in danger and the operation in jeopardy while you're working the job. I loved catching up with Darcy for this chat, and I'm glad I can share it with you, so you know what to do. Get comfortable. Are you ready to hear a story?
So I'll start with the background of it. So I was working undercover for a police agency.
Yeah.
I might be a bit jumping on this. I can't remember as well as I can. I think the information came in that a guy had been dealing, was offering large amounts of heroin.
Right.
And whilst the information just came through for a source, it would have been through an informer. But it wasn't my informant, so I don't know any details of that. But it came through.
Were you sort of working on a case already that involved these people, or it was like this was like a last minute you get sent in?
No, this would have been an initiation of it. So the way it generally worked is a source of information. And depending on what that source of information is and what accessibility the source of information has, you look in cases where it's viable, you look at introducing an undercover operative. This is certainly the case here. And I was introduced through a third party as a potential, I suppose, receiver of drugs, a fellow dealer at a different level. Whether he was wholesaling, I was looking at retailing, or I was another step in the chain. It would have been one of those. So I would have met him, and it would have been an off-the-cuff sort of meeting, just general, hi, how are you? Get to know him. It certainly wouldn't have been driven initially that I was a potential buyer of his drugs, but it would have been leaked somehow in the conversation, either by myself or the third party, that I was potentially a prospect to offload some drugs to. So from the first time meeting, I would have tried to, I suppose, ingratiate myself with the person. And often, if you're in that position, you put yourself out as being able to provide something they want. So it makes you attractive to them. And you just develop the relationship over time. About probably, I don't know, a few weeks into the relationship, after some loose contact.
And is this like, when you say relationship, is this like you're sort of wanting to be friends with them, so you're meeting up for casual beers, or you're more just meeting them to strictly talk in a business sense?
Yeah, it's kind of both, to be honest, because you develop relationships a lot better if people like you. So whether it's business or whether it's personal, generally if people don't like you, they don't really want to do things with you. If they definitely need something from you, they will. But if you can also ingratiate yourself and develop a rapport with that person, it contributes to how quickly the relationship will develop. What you're looking at doing is, I suppose, creating a certain level of trust. So whilst they might not entirely trust you, there's that baseline trust in there that can take the relationship further. So generally the way it's done is you catch up for meals, you might talk some business, but you also keep it social as well, so you don't look like you're pushing for one certain thing.
Yeah.
If you come across as too focused on, I want to buy drugs from you, I want to do this, it raises red flags, or it can raise red flags. So it was very much, catch up for a few beers or catch up for a lunch. Anyway, we got information through. Once we'd done this a few times, the relationship was ongoing. I'd purchased some small amounts of drugs off him already. And the reason for purchasing a small amount of drugs is it's sort of a double-edged sword. Firstly, to establish credibility with him, and he sells you something and nothing happens. It increases his comfort levels of dealing with you, but it also gives you the opportunity to have the drugs tested, know what quality they are. And generally, if they're of a high quality, it generally means he's very close to a source where those drugs are coming from. If he's providing drugs to you that have been stepped on multiple times, poor quality, he may not be what he's saying he is. A lot of people say they can get pounds or kilos of certain drug. And the reality is they don't have that access.
Right, and they're probably just
trying to
cutting it up.
themselves.
And if they do have a large amount, they've just cut it up with heaps of shit to try and...
Yeah, exactly. Gotcha. To try and basically increase the visible volume of it.
Mm.
So we got information through that this guy had been involved in a shooting incident in an inner city nightclub, and the circumstances of the shooting, that we had reports from the local investigators that 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, people have been in this. It was like a social club, nightclub with local entertainers. It was I think it was Arab or Turkish, or it was sort of like a what's the word for it? Sort of based around a certain ethnicity that was in that club. So a lot of them were known to each other. Anyway, there was a singer up on stage, and for some reason it wasn't known to us at this stage. Somebody in the audience had produced a handgun and had shot at the singer on stage and hit him in the leg. And
Jesus.
it was kind of a random thing, like especially in a big city.
This is just a total random incident.
Yeah. And obviously when it first happened, the local detectives were looking at it, a related motive. Why would someone just randomly shoot someone on stage?
Yeah.
And there was no indication, but from people in the club, because a lot of them were known to each other, it became evident that this guy, we'll call him Adam, he was at this stage, the prime suspect. Now, when they started doing the checks, it lit up certain alerts on the internal system, and the detectives became aware that this guy was being looked at by local investigators, local detectives. So the detectives reached out and got in contact with the local detectives. Whilst not revealing what they were looking at him for, but the fact that he was part of a bigger investigation, they got in touch with local detectives, and the detectives started talking to each other. And I suppose a plan was hatched that it wasn't advertised that that there was an undercover involved, but it was shared that they had a source of information very close to Adam, and possibly that could assist with gathering some information. So,
so they, as in get you to assist in extracting information from Adam that might prove that whether he was the shooter or not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
gotcha.
And I get some information or get some peripheral information as to why it happened. It was very open. I think my first briefing was see what you can find out on day one. So I went and had lunch with this guy down by the water. We actually went for a nice lunch, and just sort of in general conversation, I brought up what you've been up to, and he looked at me. He said, "Oh fuck, things haven't been good." I said, "Oh, why not?" obviously I knew why not, but I couldn't let on that I knew.
Yeah.
And I said, why is that? He said, I was out the other night, I was fucking wasted. He's obviously been drinking, taking drugs, basically in another world. And he said, I shot someone. I said, what the fuck? What do you mean you shot somebody? He said, I shot a guy on the stage, the singer. I said, why? He said, I don't know. He said, I was just kind of showing off to the people at the table, and I was just sort of playing with the gun, and I didn't mean to hit him, but I was just sort of, he said, I don't know. I was really pissed, and I fired the gun, but it hit him. I said, fuck, is he all right? He said, so I don't know. I think so. I saw a report in the paper or on the radio or something that he was injured, but, it wasn't life-threatening or anything like that. I said, fuck, man, why would you do that? He goes, I don't know. It's just, just being stupid. I was like agreeing with him, going, that's just fucking dumb. He said, yeah. No. He said, can you help me out? I said, how do you want me to help you out? He goes, can you get rid of the gun for me? I was like, oh, yeah, that wouldn't be a problem. I said, I can get rid of it for you. That's fine. I said, where is it? He said, it's in my car. I said, where's your car? He said, just around the corner. I was like, oh, fuck, no worries. He said, well, let's finish lunch anyway, and we'll get it at the end of lunch. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a win. I never expected to hand over firstly make a full admission, because I
get handed the weapon
in the conversation, and hand the firearm over as well. And was like, yeah, okay. I said, mate, if where'd you get the gun from? He said, I've got a few of them, so it's not really a problem. I went, okay, all right, no worries at all. And so anyway, we finished up lunch, just general chit chat, nothing sort of specific. Then I think we agreed. We were talking about a purchase of a large amount of heroin, about a kilo, and I think we made arrangements to look on the phone, but speaking on the phone, we weren't talking in detail. Just general drug deal. It's so paranoid that you don't talk on the phones.
Sure.
But we certainly, I think we agreed that we can chat a bit later and meet up later on. But in the meantime, let's go to your car. Let's get the gun. I said, left went my way, he went his way. Rather than I told him I threw the gun I handed it over to the local detectives. Full statement provided
Sorry, you just went a bit blurry there, and you've frozen a bit. But you said you got the gun, yeah, and then you'd already handed it in. Oh, wait up, you're frozen.
The detectives working sort of on my case said that they obviously wouldn't. The local detectives would stand back and wait for us to finish our operation before they release the information or charge them in relation to the gun or anything like that.
Gotcha.
Obviously, if they'd gone forward with the information about the gun, that would have burnt my position, and we couldn't have gone any further with the drug case. So I think about a week or so later, I arranged to meet this guy, Adam, again. And this was to discuss basically, I think it was to discuss the purchase of the kilo of heroin, but also to get an introduction to the suppliers who were going to provide it. So we agreed to meet at a certain location. Given the fact that this guy had been involved in, essentially shooting somebody for no apparent reason, and he'd also indicated that he had access to firearms. He obviously confirmed his propensity to use them. He wasn't shy of that. So that kind of upped the risk level from our point of view in relation to meeting him. With the undercover work, it's very, very supported in the background. It's not just like you turn up and meet somebody. There's always provisions in place to ensure your safety in case things do go wrong. And it may not go wrong because you're identified as undercover policeman. It may go wrong because they actually think you're another drug dealer who's cashed up. So, often, they may try and rob you because they think you're another drug dealer or something. And, I guess what can happen is that you can play the part too well, and they see other opportunities for themselves to make money. It's not the most ethical of businesses, so things can go wrong, and the unexpected can happen very, very quickly. So it was decided that we would set the location for the meeting, and we got the tactical team involved, which I think most people know them as a SWAT team or a special operations team. We got them involved because if you give a hand signal or say a certain word, pulls your gun or something like that, you have a sniper covering you that can basically resolve that situation immediately.
Okay, just
obviously
2 secs.
It's a rare to use this. Yeah.
2 secs. You just froze up a bit there. So you had the SWAT team there, and they told you that you had a hand signal. Did you say, or something? What was it?
So what you agree? Yeah, you agree with them beforehand. You're wearing a recording device and a transmitting device, so you got people listening to the conversation live. Yeah, but also a certain hand signal that you'll do. That will also basically that's basically your hand signal amounts to you pulling the trigger.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's literally like
situation.
That's like literally shoot him.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there a safety word as well?
You generally use a word and a signal to cover all bases. So visual and audio are covered. Plus, they're observing as well. If they observe something, he pulls out a gun and puts it at your head, and you can't say anything, or for whatever reason, they know things have gone wrong as well. So, we agree. We met and agreed on all that. But one thing that you have with the snipers is because the snipers are located a long distance away. So that generally means they give you an area which you can operate in. Obviously, it needs to be outdoors, and it needs to be free of obstruction, and preferably free of other people. You don't want innocent civilians who are walking through the path of where something can go wrong. So we agreed on this. Anyway, I arrived at the location and I waited. And I remember it was like quite a hot day. It was about 35, 36 degrees.
What sort of location was it? And, what was the location?
It was basically just it was an outdoor sort of car park by the beach. So it was quite open, but it was sort of, it wasn't a high traffic area. It was away from sort of paths on the beach and things like that. But it was adjacent to a beach car park. And what we waited for the guy to turn up. He didn't turn up. Then got a phone call and he said, "I need to meet you at my place." And you can only argue so much about we're going to do it, we're not going to do it. And a lot of the decision then comes down to what I'm comfortable with. I felt at that stage I developed a good enough relationship with this guy. I wasn't carrying large amounts of money or anything like that at the time. So I felt comfortable that he's not trying to rob me or anything like that, and he's got no reason to do harm to me because we're essentially I'm something he needs at the moment. So made a decision to go to his house, and as a backup, I knew I'd probably lose the sniper coverage when I moved, but I did know there was a tactical team that was listening to what was going on. I had surveillance on me, so they'd know where I was going. At this point in time, you need to put a lot of trust in the people you're working with. You can't really start making phone calls and saying, "Okay, you guys got this, you got that." You just trust the way the process works.
You
and
just
you know
assume that in the
you've got that
background
coverage,
there.
and
And
that gives you reassurance as well.
okay,
Yeah.
yes. So they would have heard, and they would have been listening in on your phone calls,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, so certainly I had a transmitting device on me, so I knew that they could hear on the transmitting device. I can't remember in relation to the phone intercepts at that time, but most likely there were phone intercepts as well on the other guy's phone. So they would have picked up. They would have multiple means of picking that up.
Yeah.
So of course I go to the location. I knock on the door, and the guy opens the door, and it's like a sort of a housing commission type flat in a housing commission area, and so sort of lower socioeconomic sort of area. And I walk in, and he closes the door behind me and locks the door behind me, and he said, "I need to search you." I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I need to fucking search you. I'm going to search you." And of course, I had a recording device and a transmitting device on me as well.
So what can you just describe what they look like and where they are and how big they are?
Yeah, so it's basically like what you see on TV. You have a battery pack that's either in your sort of in your pocket or in your underwear or in your sock or something like that.
How big would that be?
Well, it's basically the size of a couple of AA batteries.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So quite small, a matchbox size.
Yep.
And from that you have the wires going to the microphones. Now, if it's, I think I had it in my sock, or in the inside of my, sock, but in my shoe. So I could still walk properly in that, but I was conscious of it. And I had the wires coming up my legs, and I had the microphones basically on my hips. And look, there's a lot better technology around these days. A lot smaller, a lot more easier to conceal. But the bottom line is, no matter what kind of device you have, you need a battery pack, and you need some microphones to pick up the noise.
Yeah.
Now, I couldn't have had the microphones in my shoes because it just wouldn't have picked up the voice transmissions correctly. So I had the microphones basically on both my hips. So whilst not ideal, good enough to pick up the conversation as long as there wasn't too much background noise. And that's something that's planned into before you do the meeting, the location, lack of background noise. Sometimes it can't be avoided, but you do your best to, I suppose, make the environment as much suitable to you rather than suitable to them. So he said, I'm going to search you. And I'm like, what the fuck are you going to search me for? He goes, oh, you got to do this. I said, this is bullshit. And so, you kind of, you're playing a criminal. So you can offer a certain amount of resistance just based on the fact that this is bullshit. You're not going to do it.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, if they want to search you, and nothing's going to sort of go on from there. You've got to let them. So I basically I had a button-up shirt on, so I opened the shirt.
Fuck, you just
basically seen gangster movies and shit like that.
Yeah, you just froze it. You opened the shirt. Say that again. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So what I did was I opened my shirt and I basically pulled it apart like this.
Yeah.
And I sort of did a twirl so you could see my back. A lot like you see on TV, because these guys base a lot of shit they do on. They think they're gangsters.
Yeah,
they see gangster stuff on TV, so they kind of do. A lot of them do the same thing as that. That doesn't mean they're not dangerous or they can't do bad stuff, but they're not like, it's not like a methodical search they're doing of you. Sorry, it's not COVID. So I said to the guy, I said, "You happy? Happy?" Yes. And he goes, "Your pants, your pants." And I was like, "Oh fuck! You want to see my cock? You want to see my cock?" I sort of pulled my pants down at the front, so my underwear was visible, but certainly so my legs weren't visible because. So I sort of kind of pulled it down in the middle at the front because I didn't want my legs to be visible because obviously that's where the microphones were. Um, and a lot of these guys, they I suppose it's the bravado or the macho element of it. They don't want you, pulling out and showing your genitals and stuff like that.
Mm.
So I went to pull my underwear down. He goes, no, stop. And he patted down my legs, and it's funny. He patted down the front of my legs, which the wires were on the sides, and then as he got to the bottom, he sort of moved around to the sides and back to the front. And because where the battery pack was in my shoe, he just didn't actually feel the wire. The wire is quite small, so obviously it's not noticeable. But if he got me to pull my pants up, or if he actually touched the flesh, he would have felt them. But he didn't. And the whole time there, I'm thinking, fuck, this is not going to work out right. And I had a number of things going through my mind. Firstly, it was like, okay, if he touches a wire, he may not realise what it is straight away. But even if he does, he wasn't on his knees, but he's been over in front of me. I'm in a sort of superior position because he can't reach from me. He can reach from my legs, but if I hit him in the top of the head, I can take him down. Also, I wasn't sure if there was someone else upstairs in the apartment. I don't know if he's got someone else here with him or not. So I was sort of conscious of the fact that there could be someone upstairs. There could be a firearm involved. And also, a million things are going through your mind at this time. But it's also, I don't know, you're very, everything's very clear in your mind. It's sort of like when things happen, so it feels like it's a little bit slow motion. It's all happening very quick, but you got amazing clarity of what's going on. And he paid down my legs. I think all I'm going to do is, if he gets something, if he notices something, I'll just punch him in the back of the head as hard as I can, and then go for the front door and get out. So I thought, if I punch him in the head, that'll give me a few seconds to get out the door, even if somebody is upstairs, unless they start taking shots or whatever. But, either way, I've got to move. But also what was going through my mind at the same time was, oh, fuck, we put all this time into this job. We got so close to getting the heroin, and this is going to spoil it. When it's going to wreck the job. So it was interesting that, the two things were going through my mind almost simultaneously. I think that, okay, I've got to make sure I'm okay, and this is what I'll do. But also, this is going to end the job, and this is a pity because I think this can be, this is legit. This is going to happen. Anyway, he patted me down, and he goes, "You're all right, man. I'm really sorry about that. I'm really sorry." He stood back up, and you sort of get that feeling where you're on the edge. You're just about to, I guess you got that fight or flight response going through your body, and whilst I think it's certainly under control, the adrenaline is there because you're just thinking, I'm about to do something. I've got to do something, and it's going to be a split second. There's either go or don't go, and with him saying, "Okay, man, I'm really sorry about that," it's like, don't go. But then your body's got to sit down. I remember saying, "Fuck, man, what the fuck's going on? Why the fuck would you do that?" Just got to be really careful. These people I'm dealing with told me that I've got to be really careful, and you could be a cop and stuff like that, or you could be working with the cops. I'm like, what the fuck? I said, "You gave me a fucking gun, man. I got rid of your gun for you. I'm not a fucking cop, don't know." And he's like, "Yeah, I knew that. And I think to some degree he did think that because his search he did of me was obviously second rate. He didn't find what he was looking for, which was, whilst it wasn't in plain sight, it wasn't that hard to find. I remember thinking, when I sat down, I remember thinking, fuck, I hope, because I was thinking, if the tactical teams heard this, they might be like a split second off caving in that front door and coming in. And I reckon for about the next 20 seconds, the whole time I was sitting there with the conversation, just saying, don't come in, don't come in, don't come in. And of course they didn't. So we had the meeting, we discussed what we're going to do. He said, look, you can't meet the guys today, I don't know, but what we're going to do is we're going to meet this time. You bring the money and they'll bring the drugs and we can do the exchange. And so everything was agreed on, the location, what time we do. So I remember I walked out and, obviously go back to my people. And I had a controller who's basically my single point of and things like that. I said, fuck, that was close, wasn't it? He goes, what do you mean? I said, when we had to move on the sniper, I thought, he'd come crashing the door maybe. He said, why? I said, because when he started patting me down and saying he was going to do this, he goes, no, the device dropped out and we couldn't hear you. I was like, fuck, there's all those layers of safety that I thought were behind me, but just weren't there at all. And it's funny how but I always remember about that the two things that went through my mind. The job's going to be over and that's going to be it's going to be disappointing because this would have been a good one.
Yeah.
Or this guy might have someone upstairs who's going to shoot me. And both things were going through my mind at the same time.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Did he have a weapon at all at the time? Is there any weapons seen?
He didn't have a weapon, no. If he did, he never showed it to me. It was never any indication of what happened. And then, by all accounts, no one was upstairs at all because obviously, I went back then. We then met up with him later. Then it was actually later that we did the drug purchase, and he was kind of the middleman. Because of the quantity of drugs, the suppliers didn't trust him with the money or the drugs, so they came in as well. Their own people. I think we did the drug deal about probably 4 or 5 days later, and it was interesting because we were always looking at getting a kilo of heroin. But when it came down to the day, these guys got a bit jumpy and said, "We're not going to do the whole kilo. We'll do half a kilo at a time." And I think they weren't suspecting us police because basically the penalties for a kilo and half a kilo are the same for trafficking drugs.
Okay.
But I think they were worried that maybe if there's a robbery or something that was going to happen. So I remember we met in a back lane of a back street of a inner city suburb, and I knew that there was surveillance on there. There was a tactical team that would go and do the arrest once they gave the signal. But we knew after we done the half kilo, we weren't going to let the money go away. I can't remember, to be honest, exactly how much money it was, but I think it was a couple $100,000.
Yeah.
And certainly at that time, we weren't in a position to let that money go in case we never saw it again.
Yeah.
In case they were lying to us and we lost the money. So one of the things we agreed to the half kilo because it was like, well, that's the most we're going to get. But what we did was, and this is quite a common practice amongst drug dealers and everything, we kept the money in a separate car. So they sent someone down to me who agreed to, okay, we're going to do this. They then were going away, get the half kilo, you bring your personal money in. So I had another person, I think I passed off as my girlfriend or something, but another police undercover. She came from another vehicle because you're always constantly being robbed of either the drugs or the money. It goes both ways.
Right.
And they brought the they brought the drugs down, and she brought the money down, handed the money to me, and basically arrived at the same time. I handed the money over. He opened the bag with the money. He handed the drugs over. I opened the bag with the drugs. I gave a word that was a signal for that's it. The drugs have been handed over. I think they were doing something like putting a hand out the window of the car or something as well. So I put that word into the conversation, and then like within literally 5 seconds, the tactical team was surrounding us and pulled us out of the car, and and that was it. It was interesting actually because the tactical team who arrested me, I'd been to their office in the morning, so they could visually see me. What clothes I was wearing, what my face looked like. Yeah. I knew quite a lot of them because I'd worked with them multiple times. But for some reason, one of the guys didn't recognise me or didn't. I don't know. It's all it's highly tense, the whole situation, and there's movement, and it's sort of all done. It's all planned, but exactly where people are and how it's happening. There's multiple targets need to be arrested at the same time. It's not just myself and the person in the car. It's where he's been. So they've got people arresting where he's gone to get the drugs from because surveillance has identified that. And this is all happening in real time. So not a lot of planning goes into that stage. Look, when I say not a lot of planning, exact planning of exactly where people are going to be and how it's going to happen, they don't know that until it happens. Yeah. But the planning behind how they doing that's rehearsed over and over again. And I saw them coming, and I knew how tactical teams arrest people. So you certainly, I was out of the car actually. I must have stepped outside the car, and I stepped out, and so I as soon as I saw them coming, I just lay down flat on my face with my arms out. So I'm no threat. I'm not moving or anything like that. And the first guy to me, he basically put his knee on the sort of side. I had my head on the side. And I was kind of watching too. I wanted to see them arrest the other people as it happened. That was more my curiosity. So I was sort of watching, and I was thinking, when the guy comes up to me, it'd be very, very staged. Next thing I see a knee on my head, and this day was quite hot as well. I think it was getting up towards the 40 degrees, and I remember as he put the knee on my head, the black asphalt was extremely hot, and he basically put my head, like my cheekbone, into the black asphalt. It bruised me, of course, swung, but broke the skin as well. This guy's overzealous, but whatever. I just like, and then they sort of get around me, and some of the guys around me, I knew them, and so this guy stepped off me, and he's patted me down actually, but my head's still on the ground, and he's patted me down, and I think he felt the listening device, and he goes, "What's this?" I was like, in my mind, he's going, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like, so I said, not loud voice, I said, "It's a fucking device." And he goes, "Device? What kind of fucking device?" And I didn't know what he's talking about because I'm assuming he knows I'm undercover, but he didn't. For some reason, it didn't click. It was a big fuck up, to be honest. It didn't click, and he gives the call sign over the radio to all the other tactical team, which is a call sign for an explosive device. He gives that, and one of the guys in the group turns around and he goes, "It's a fucking undercover! It's a fucking undercover, you idiot!" And he goes, "Oh, fuck, sorry, mate." Pressure off my head a little bit, and then they put me in a company back to to my people, and we do a full debrief straight away. And of course, for days and days after that, there was a lot of issues in the background about why the technical team didn't recognise who I was.
Yeah.
Because obviously, that sort of opens up the door of, if I'd moved in a different way, would he have taken a shot or would he have done something? But at the time, I'm just completely thinking, well, he'll know I'm the undercover. He's thinking, oh, I'm a criminal. I've got some kind of device on me. And I certainly know, from I met the guy probably years after the social event. And I was with a mate of mine who worked with him. And my mate, he introduced me, he goes, this is the fucking UC that you assaulted. And the guy goes, oh, fuck, sorry about that. He goes, I still hear about that every time we go on the job. I hear about that.
Shit.
So it was a bit of a big fuck up, mate.
That's a pretty major fuck up. Yeah, he'd be living with that.
Yeah, it was a big one. Yeah. Yeah, so it was, all in all, that was a pretty interesting job. I had obviously the firearm issues on the side. And I think in the end, that guy ended up getting, I don't know, he got quite a bit of time in jail, but for the shooting, I think he got a couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
But for the drug trafficking, I think he got 5 or 6 years on that. He never would have done that, but I think he probably got parole after, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. But he certainly did some time in jail.
Do you ever have any, like, in that world, is there any fear of just the repercussions of people recognizing you in another job? Like, I always wonder about that.
It's very carefully planned so as you deconflict, before you put onto a job. It's certainly looked on, where you've worked before, what jobs you've done before, what connections those targets might have. So it's planned out as well as you can. There's always that, I suppose, random opportunity that you can bump into somebody or whatever. And certainly, I've done jobs interstate where I've been in a bar during the day and I've seen someone I know from interstate walk into that bar and, they've gone to wave at me. I've turned my back on them immediately. So, and go up and walk to the toilet. And sort of, when I come back out, like giving a sort of surreptitious shaking my head like, no. And if they're guys I've worked with before, they obviously know what work I've been involved in or where I've been, and they'll get the hint. There's always that risk you bump into someone who's not from the same background, and they have no idea of what you're doing there or why you're there. But
I guess even with the criminal sort of factor, if you gave that kind of a look and shook your head, I guess the assumption wouldn't immediately be, oh, he must be a cop. There's a million things that dodgy. No. If you're a dodgy guy, then there's a million dodgy things you could be doing that you didn't want them to come and talk to you about.
Yeah, exactly. And I've never, in relation to the repercussions, I've never really considered that because you're always operating under a different name. They know nothing about your true identity.
Right.
Certainly when you're operating Australia-wide, Australia's a big place to track down, where you are and where you've come from. And certainly in Australia-wide jobs, even the people we're working with, they don't know your real name.
Right.
They get introduced to you by your undercover name.
Right.
But as in the other law enforcement.
Yeah.
So there's multiple levels there. If you randomly bump into someone on the street after it's happened, that could be a problem. But certainly, I think as a culture in Australia, the last thing you want to do is start killing policemen because it's bad for business.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So, the repercussions of that are going to make business bad for everybody. That was never a concern to me. It's more, I guess, bumping into someone probably or ran, but not so much repercussions from them.
Okay.
And more often not, but not all the time. they plead guilty once they find out there's an undercover involved. So they might not get all the details with the information they can get. What's all disclosed to them. They'll have a fair idea of who the undercover is and what they're doing, but they may not always know. Unless you get to court, you never have to get up openly in front of them and give evidence if they plead guilty.
Right.
So often when there's an undercover involved, they want to plead guilty anyway because they get discounts on their sentencing and things like that.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So in that,
Yeah,
just going back to that like moment, because the crux of that story like is definitely like it's sort of like it builds up, and then the full crux of that story is obviously that moment where you are suddenly faced with the fact that you're getting searched and you're trying to come up with a way out of it. And I think like the when I'm telling the story, the whole sort of the hilarity of the moment is when you are pulling down your pants and sort of motioning that you're sort of flashing your cock at the guy, and at the same time, so you did you kind of in your head were you sort of playing on the idea of, well, I'll just freak him out with a bit of homophobic kind of just really shove that cock in the face kind of attitude, like to sort of make him go, oh, okay, it's cool, man, I don't want to see your cock. Was that kind of what you're doing with it?
Absolutely. The last thing I want to do is tell him he can't search me or look like I'm trying to stop him searching me. You want it to be his idea that he stops searching me. So
yeah,
you got to think a little bit outside the box. And if that means putting your cock in his face, well, that's what he's going to get. And
and it was definitely a time when I was just going to say it's definitely a time where like, when was this, by the way? Like early 90s or?
This would have been late 90s, yeah.
Late 90s, yeah. I mean, it's certainly a time where, people are still just like, what do you think? What do you fucking faggot or whatever, sort of.
Yeah, and look, I suppose not to make it a racial thing or anything, he was from he was Middle Eastern.
Right,
so,
yeah.
Cultures, there's a lot, I suppose, maybe in a Western culture, there's a lot more freedom around that kind of thing where guys joke with each other. But certainly in the Middle Eastern culture, that's not sort of a joking point.
That's a strong point actually. And like do you think at the time you were, well, first of all, did you already have in your head any kind of like, when you went in there, had you at all pre-thought that you would do that you would specifically play on that kind of thing if that situation occurred, or it was all in the moment?
No, not at all. I think it's one of those things. You can't have a predetermined action for every situation because it's impossible to identify every possible situation that's going to happen.
But that seems like a pretty light that. But the idea of that someone might want to look for a wire does seem like a situation that you would sort of go, oh, that could happen, or was it more because you thought you had the backup?
No, more so because I thought I had the relationship with him, and
right.
We'd already been through the thing where he'd give me the gun. You're certainly right. In a lot of situations you go into, and I've had it in other ones where you don't wear a wire because you're going to be strip searched.
Right.
There's certain criminal groups that you'd be strip searched. To the extent where you take off all your clothes and stand there, do a tour with no clothes on. So in those situations, you definitely don't go in there wearing a listening device. This one, I'd already established a rapport with him. I was already on good terms with him. He asked me to get rid of a firearm that he'd used. Certainly not something you'd do because I thought someone was an undercover policeman. That's a risk you're not going to take because there's no coming back from that.
That makes sense.
I suppose I was caught unawares that he was going to search me. I just thought he was just doing a typical thing where, a lot of them are unorganised. I suppose to use terminology, they can't organise a route in a brothel. They're always late. They can't do things. So you just when they change locations at the last minute and things like that. Sometimes there's a methodology behind it. They're doing it because it's a safety measure or whatever. But there was no money being handed over here. There was no transaction of drugs. It was simply for a meeting to discuss it and the possibility of meeting the suppliers.
Right.
So the meeting was never going to happen immediately. It would have been we go to another location to get that. But obviously the objective was get the suppliers to come to where we are so we can maintain, those security measures we had in place. But nothing's guaranteed on that. But certainly, being searched wasn't something I thought was going to happen.
That makes sense.
And, it's, even though I say, the wires were all on my legs, I suppose seen as an acceptable level of risk. Now we need to have the, probably the recording wasn't as important as for a safety measure as of the real-time transmission, because that was an indication when something goes wrong. But it just wasn't something that was expected. So when it did happen, it's just a matter of, there's no point fighting and kicking and screaming. You're not going to allow them to search it because that's just like, why wouldn't you allow them to search it? It just raises red flags. Yeah. So you go, okay, but that was the first thing that came to mind. It's like, okay, well, let's take it to the next level. And what didn't stop him, I think, and as I said, he was a little bit half-assed in the way he did it as well. If it's not hard to search someone and be methodological about it. In that, you do it bit by bit. Just this random painting is like, why bother doing that? If you're just going to do a half-assed effort, then just don't do it at all. I think it was something he'd been told to do, and he felt he had to do it, but he didn't really know what he was doing, and he was doing it. And I think probably a combination of he made him feel a bit uncomfortable, shift the dynamic a little bit by making him a little uncomfortable, and also the underlying thing that he thought I was okay anyway, so he wasn't really, his heart and soul wasn't really in searching. I was wearing elasticized tracksuit pants, so they pulled down quite easy, and it just pulled down basically around my cock, and that was it. But it still kept my pants up over my ass and over on the sides. So it still provided that cover.
The old drug dealer, tracky pants, mate.
Black tracky pants and a singlet and a flanny.
Is that what you were wearing?
Can't go wrong.
That's good to know.
I was wearing something like that.
That's a good description.
I can't remember if I had a flanny on or not, but I certainly had a singlet on. And
I'll say you did.
A wife beater and an overshirt. Hey?
I'll say you did, don't worry. I'll say you had a flanny.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember if it was a flanny or not, but it probably was, mate, because I needed something to provide a bit more bulk. A singlet just wouldn't have been good enough. So I think I had I actually think that was a recording device. I think that was on my down my legs. I think I actually had sewn into the front seam of my shirt. I think that's where the transmission device was.
Yeah, because I remember now when you told me this story that when you pulled the shirt open, there was something else in the buttons. So I remember you saying that.
Yeah, it was a device sewn into the seam of the shirt. So I could take the shirt off and I had nothing on my body. Everything was on my lower body. So there are two different devices. Back then it was certainly anyway. The recording device and the transmission device were two different things. So the transmission device had a small battery and came up, the front here, and there would have been a microphone inside the shirt here.
Right.
It would have been a flat microphone there. And that's why I think that was the reason I undid my shirt straight away and showing, because I didn't want to touch my shirt.
Right.
So I opened the shirt straight away and showed I had nothing on my body. But I did in the seam of the shirt, of course.
Wow, what a trip. So do you think like you're in those moments, your training sort of keeps you any calmer in general because you find yourself in those sort of situations a lot, or are you still, is there still a bit of a panic sort of mode going on?
Not so much a panic. I suppose, you do get that adrenaline splurge a little bit, but it's sort of what you focus on as well. As I said, I was focused on, clear in my mind, I was focused on two things. Firstly, the job was going to turn to shit and it was going to be over, which I was disappointed about, but also focused on the fact that if this goes wrong, how am I going to extricate myself from this? So obviously, I don't get hurt in any way. So I think there's a certain level of focus. I suppose the training does help, but I think people who do undercover work have a certain mindset anyway. And it's not easily panicked or alarmist in the way they respond to things. I certainly know myself. I don't, when something happens, I certainly, first thing I sort of think of is not to, scream and shout or panic about what's going wrong. You try and clarify in your mind, how am I going to fix this? So I think, it's probably a combination of I suppose the right personality and the right behaviours.
Yep. Oh, you just froze up a bit, but yeah, man. Fuck, it's a mental story. Like that's definitely a moment. Did you over your time undercover have many moments like that where there was like a fight or flight moment of like, holy fuck, this could all go wrong?
I guess there's always, I think in the majority of jobs I did and stuff, it's generally around being identified as an undercover. So, one of the main ways they can do that, you're generally pretty confident no one's going to walk you into a room and go, we know you're undercover. That's highly unlikely, because generally if they knew that in advance or whatever, they just say, we don't want to do business with you. They don't want to shine a light on them that they're doing something wrong. But it's being, I guess, when you're never alone, or not usually alone. Sometimes surveillance haven't got you, or sometimes in the deeper jobs. I certainly found later in my career that where you're doing those sort of longer term, deeper cover type jobs, you're operating without surveillance and that, operating without the direct backup, because you've already inserted yourself into a situation and you're carrying on life with these people. And you're not actually doing, you're building relationships, you're not doing stuff. So it's not like you're going and doing drug deals or anything like that. You're going for lunch, or you're going to the pub with them or something like that. You're hanging out more on a social basis. But I think it's always around when they want to search you or when they want you to. I guess I always found it was being searched when you knew you had a device on you. When you haven't got a device on you, who cares? Search away. But it's those few occasions where you maybe not calculated it wrong. I've been in jobs where you've had to wear a device, and it's probably against your wishes. Like, I'd rather not have it on this meeting. But maybe a meeting happens that you weren't planning for, and you get searched, and so like. But I suppose I did this into the mid 2000s, and certainly by the mid 2000s, the technology improved significantly. Your means of concealing those devices was a lot better, and your confidence increases with your, I suppose, with your satisfaction with the equipment you've got. If you're using shit equipment, you're always. I think it makes you a little bit nervous. If you're using good equipment and you think, this is pretty much impossible to cut or to see or to locate, you feel a lot more confident, and that comes across in your demeanour as well. The main thing is you don't want to display nerves that are unusual. If you're doing a drug deal, it's not unusual for a little bit of nervousness or tension, because even drug dealers now can be nervous or a bit tense as well. It goes for buying firearms and things like that as well. But certainly, you don't want to show unnecessary nerves when they start asking you questions about your background. But that's just about rehearsing and having your story straight and knowing. And if you're comfortable with your story, you can just tell that story and a base story. And if you need to add bits on, you add bits on. It's like with all, when you're telling lies, you want to keep the lies to the minimum, because the more lies you tell them, the further down that rabbit hole you go.
Yeah. Then you got to remember them all.
Tell them, it sounds like you're going to be caught out. Yeah. You can be a mistake there, and that's especially when you're out with these guys on long-term jobs, and when you're, if you're drinking with them and things like that, you don't want to be too. You don't want to seem like you're not forthcoming with information, but you certainly don't want to be like this guy sitting in the corner, me. Yeah. Because it's hard to remember stories at the best of times if you tell 100 different lies. Yeah. It's hard to remember 100 different lies if it's over a 3-hour drinking session as well.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
So you definitely need to be careful of that.
Yeah. Were you pretty passionate about, where were your passion just lie in the job itself, or did you have any kind of particular passion, like anti-heroin passion, or driven by anything else, or was it more just you just keen to do a good job?
I was certainly never never a true believer or a zealot in I'm fighting a good fight, I'm doing the right thing. I think I had a pragmatic approach to it. Drugs are illegal, and it's a great lifestyle and great money if you're successful at it. But if you're not successful at it, well, the consequences can be quite bad as well. And I just saw it as, even when I in longer term jobs where you develop relationships with people, some of them might have been good blokes. It doesn't, just because they're doing drugs doesn't mean they're a bad person to be around. They might be quite a sociable person. You enjoyed having a beer with them, or having a bet on the horses or something. But it's just part of the way it goes. If you get caught, you get
just playing the game.
Playing the game. And so I was never I'm saving. I never had this idea that I was saving the world or changing the world or making the world a better place. I enjoyed it. It was a good fun job. As a reasonably young guy, you're doing stuff that you see on TV, and a very even within the police and other agencies, there's a very, very, very small group of people who actually do this kind of work. It's just I wouldn't say I'm an adrenaline junkie or anything like that, but it's an exciting field of work. It challenges you personally. I found it just very rewarding from the point of it's very challenging. You're testing yourself the whole time, and just interacting with people. I still like that kind of thing. Whether it's for whatever reason it is, it's just that interaction with people and I suppose the variety of it.
Yeah, you build up some pretty amazing rapport. Like whenever you're in an intense situation with anyone, you sort of walk away with that sort of deeper connection with that person. And even when I've done, when I used to work on events, I really miss working on all the rock concerts and everything, because just bouncing from gig to gig, even though they were all different festivals and whatever, you'd still end up bumping into the same crew, same faces, and you'd always have these in-house jokes that you've developed over the tours, and you just build up that camaraderie. It's especially that whole team thing. It's fucking cool.
Absolutely, and it's shared experiences as well. That goes toward a long way, I think. And even though I when jobs are over, and people went to jail and stuff like that. I've seen on TV where there's not many shows you ever see on TV, portray undercover work very well, but there has been a few good ones. And they said undercover feeling bad because the target's gone to jail and they've got small children and things like that. That's all sad, and I agree, but that's their fault. They were the ones who decided to be a drug dealer, and they knew the consequences of being a drug dealer. I didn't make those children fatherless. They made their own kids fatherless.
Yeah.
So I never saw it from a point of view of, I could develop a relationship with these people, but I never felt like I was one of them, or I was, I owed them anything or anything like that. It was very, very. When the job was over, and I moved on.
Sure.
I'd never had a second thought or thinking about, it's terrible they've gone to jail. It's like, I go to work. I get 4 weeks leave a year, and that's it. And I've got to go to work 9 to 5 and do whatever.
Yeah, sure.
They get a lot more leave than that. They can come and go as they please, and they earn a lot more money than me. They've got advantages, bigger advantages, but they've also got big disadvantages when it goes wrong. So, I just think it's part of the way it works.
Yeah, fair enough, man.
Yeah, it's not the world's a bad place, and that's why these guys had to become drug addicts or drug dealers or whatever. It's just life.
Yeah, fully. Cool, man. Well, fuck, I think we'll wind it up there. That's like a good hour.
Cheers, mate. Good luck with it.
Have a good one, dude.
Ciao.
Ciao.
See you, bud.